coming to the explanation of that, recap of yesterday's class. So we just took a rectangular loop. Okay, so just placed in a uniform magnetic field, so that due to the magnetic force experienced by the arm A and B, so what happens? So the loop experiences a torque. Okay, whereas the arm AD and BC, the force experienced by that AD and BC, that is F4 and F3. So since it is both equal in magnitude and opposite in direction, so the F3 and F4 get cancelled. Okay, only F1 and F2 constitutes a torque. Okay, so due to that the rectangular loop starts rotating. Okay, and we just also find the value of a torque. What is that? Tau is equal to IAB sin theta, right? So the value of the torque comes out to be as IAB sin theta, correct? So that NIA is replaced by a M. Okay, M is called as the magnetic moment, right? So usually the value of M is nothing but I into A. Okay, so since we have expressed that tau is equal to IAB sin theta for n number of turns, we have just multiplied that one with n. Okay, so otherwise the value of M is nothing but, usually for a single turn it is I into A. Suppose if you take n number of turns, it will be NIA. Okay, so next tau is equal to MB sin theta. So in the vector form, vector tau is equal to vector M into vector M cross vector B. Okay, and we also just went through about the special cases. That means that when theta is equal to 0 degree, the torque experience is 0. Okay, similarly when theta is equal to 90 degree, the torque experienced by the rectangular loop is nothing but maximum, correct? So the value of the torque comes out to be as NIAB. Okay, so next it was regarding similarity between electric dipole and current loop. Okay, just go through the equations. Okay, so it is just a comparison. Okay, only for you people to just go through what is the difference between this magnetic field on the axis of a circular loop, similarly about the electric field. Okay, just a comparison, just you itself go through about that. So the next topic comes out to be as magnetic orbital dipole moment of a revolving electron. Okay, even this is an important question. So in most of the paper you can see this question, which has been asked for 5 marks. Okay, so magnetic orbital dipole moment of a revolving electron. So let me explain the figure first. Okay, uh, you can see there an electron is moving in a circular orbit. Okay, let me do one thing, just a minute. Before going to the figure, let me explain this the theory part. Okay, so it will be easy to you people to apply to that. The moment of the electron in circular orbit around the nucleus in anti-clockwise is equivalent to the flow of current in orbit in clockwise direction. Thus, the orbit of electrons is considered as tiny current loop. Okay, you can see here the current is moving in the clockwise direction. In the figure you can see there the current is moving in the clockwise direction, whereas an electron is moving in the anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so that orbit of electron is considered as the current loop. Okay, the orbit of electron is considered as the tiny current loop. So current is moving in the clockwise direction, whereas the electron is moving in a anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so now if you want to find the angular momentum, okay, to find the angular momentum, see there the direction of angular momentum vector, that is L is equal to RMV. Okay, so that M is denoted by M subscript E, that means that mass of the electron, or else we simply define linear moment angular momentum as R into MV. Okay, so L is equal to vector R cross M subscript E V vector, acts along the normal to the plane of orbit in upward direction, and its magnitude is given by L is equal to MVR, or VR is equal to L by ME, M subscript E. Okay, VR is equal to L divided by M subscript E, that is taken as equation 1. Okay, just we are finding the angular momentum. Okay, angular momentum is expressed as linear momentum into r. Okay, so that is what we have written there. So you can see there the orbital sorry the angular momentum is depending on the mass of an electron. Okay, so mass of an electron, as you can see, the electron is moving in the anti-clockwise direction. So if you apply the right hand thumb rule, okay, the curled finger represents the orbiting of an electron, and the thumb denotes the direction of angular momentum. Okay, that is in the upward direction. So in the figure you can see the direction of angular momentum is in the upward direction. Okay, so next, coming to this, where m is the mass of electron, v is the velocity, and r is the radius. Okay, m is the mass of the electron, v is the velocity of it, and r is the radius of the orbit. You can see in the figure there. Okay, so next, orbital motion of electron in anti-clockwise direction is equivalent to the flow of conventional current in the clockwise direction. So as you can see there, the current and the electron is moving in opposite directions. Okay, so hence the orbit of an electron in anti-clockwise direction is equivalent to the flow of conventional current in the clockwise direction, right? Just we are comparing that. Okay, next, I is equal to E by T. Usually how we are going to define the electric current mathematically, I is equal to Q by T, right? Correct. So now what I have done is, just we have taken I is equal to, instead of Q, Q is a charge, right? But we have taken here it as an electron. So electron E divided by, instead of T, small t, we have taken capital T. Capital T is for one time period. Okay, for one oscillation, for one orbit. Okay, so I is equal to E by capital T. Okay, so next, E is the charge of an electron and T is the time period of orbital motion. Done. Okay, next, as we know that the time period is nothing but T is equal to 2 pi r divided by V. So this equation we have come across in the cyclotron. I think you remember this equation, right? Time period. So you can also see here how it came. Usually V is equal to circumference by time period, or time period is equal to circumference by V. Okay, so just substitute the value of, so I comes out to be as we know that I is equal to E by T. Substitute the value of T as 2 pi r divided by V. So the value of I comes out to be as EV divided by 2 pi r. Okay, the value of I comes out to be as EV divided by 2 pi r. So next, you can see there orbital magnetic moment of a current loop. Okay, so here the orbital magnetic moment, so which we have taken as small m. Do you remember that m is equal to I into a, right? This is the magnetic moment. Small m denotes the magnetic moment. Since now we are dealing with orbital magnetic moment. Okay, since the electron is in orbit. Okay, it is orbiting, right? So orbital magnetic moment is denoted by the letter mu subscript L. Okay, that is nothing but equal to I into a. Fine. So next you can see here we have just substituted the value of either EV divided by 2 pi r into area of the loop. Area of the loop is nothing but pi r square, right? So multiple, in the place of a we have just substituted the value of pi r square. So pi and pi get cancelled and one of the r get cancelled. The left out thing is EVR divided by 2. Okay, the value of mu L comes out to be as EVR divided by 2. Okay, so next what we have done is, in the place of VR, okay, in the place of VR, see, just a minute, VR is nothing but what? See the equation 1 here, VR is equal to L by ME, right? So substituting that value by making use of equation 1, you can write mu L as, okay, mu L is equal to E divided by 2. The value of VR comes out to be as L by ME. Okay, so that is taken as equation 2. Okay, so mu L denotes the orbital magnetic moment of a current loop, and the value of that is E divided by 2 ME into L. So in terms of vector form, we are going to write that one as mu subscript L is equal to minus E divided by 2m subscript E into L vector. Okay, So you can see there the negative sign, the orbital magnetic moment, that is mu L, is opposite to that of the direction of vector L. Vector L is nothing but what? Angular momentum, right? So since both mu L and L are opposite to each other, we have written the negative sign there. Okay, you can see here the direction of mu L in the figure, it is in the downward direction, which is opposite to that of angular momentum. Okay, so since the mu L depends upon the I into A, right? What is the direction of I? It is in clockwise direction. Make use of the right hand thumb rule. So the curled finger represents the direction of current, whereas the thumb denotes the direction of orbital magnetic moment. Okay, so since mu L and L are opposite in the direction, so we have taken a negative sign in equation 3. Okay, so next what we have done is just we have substituted the values. Okay, just that equation 3 can be written as mu L divided by L is equal to E divided by 2 me. So charge of an electron is 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 divided by 2 into mass of an electron, that is 9.1 into 10 power minus 37. So the value of that comes out to be as 8.8 into 10 power 10 coulomb per kg. Okay, 8.8 into 10 power 10 coulomb per kg. That is the value of mu L divided by L. Okay, and this ratio, that is orbital magnetic moment to that of angular momentum, is known as gyromagnetic constant, we call. Okay, the ratio of this mu L divided by L. Okay, so the ratio of that value is known as gyromagnetic constant. Okay, next what we have done is, as you know that in the atoms chapter we have just went through about this second law of second postulate of Bohr's orbit, right? So what does it says? The angular momentum of an electron is given by L is equal to nh divided by 2 pi, right? So where the n can take the value from 1, 2, 3, and h is a Planck's constant, as you know that, right? So next what we have done is, so from equation 2 we have substituted the value of L there. Okay, so here in equation 2 it is mu L is equal to E divided by 2me into L, right? So the same thing in the value, in the place of L we have substituted here nh divided by 2 pi. So that is nothing but equal to, taking n outside, the value of that comes out to be as n into Eh divided by 4 pi me. Okay, Eh divided by 4 pi me. So now if you consider the value of n is equal to 1, then the value of mu L comes out to be as Eh divided by 4 pi m. Okay, that means that when the electron is orbiting in the first state, that is n is equal to 1, then the value of orbital magnetic moment is minimum, that is nothing but equal to Eh divided by 4 pi m. We call that one as the Bohr magneton. Okay, when n1 is equal to 1, the value of mu L is minimum. Okay, that is called as the Bohr magneton, and it is denoted by mu b. Okay, it is denoted as mu b. Okay, so hence if you can see here, if n is equal to 1, mu L is replaced by mu b. Okay, so if n is equal to 1, the mu L can be replaced by mu b, that is Bohr magneton, that is nothing but equal to Eh divided by 4 pi m. Substituting the values of charge of an electron, Planck's constant, divided by 4 into pi, and mass of an electron, you are going to get the value of Bohr magneton as 9.27 into 10 power minus 34 ampere meter square. Okay, 9.27 into 10 power minus 24. Okay, so this is the about the Bohr magneton. Okay, and I said that this question is an important question. They are going to ask this one for 5 marks. Okay, so do one thing, just go through the derivation each and every steps. So in case if you have any doubts, please let me know. Just go through this derivation for some time. Any doubts? Any doubts? Please do ask. Yes. How about others? Have you followed this derivation? Okay, fine. Coming to this moving coil galvanometer. Okay. So moving coil galvanometer. See, moving coil galvanometer, as you know that galvanometer is a device which is used to detect a small current flowing in a circuit, right? So usually we are going to make use of this ammeter to measure the current, right? Okay, so we use the ammeter for measuring the current. Okay, suppose in case if you want to measure a very small amount of current in the circuit, so instead of ammeter we are going to make use of this galvanometer. Okay, so galvanometer is a device which is used to measure a small current in the circuit. Okay, so now to study about this moving coil galvanometer, so first let me go through this principle. Okay, so it is based on the fact that when a current carrying loop or coil is placed in a uniform magnetic field, it experiences a torque. Okay, as you know that we have studied the same thing in the last class, right? So whenever you place a current carrying loop, okay, in the presence of magnetic field, it experiences a torque. On that same uh, principle it going to work. Okay, this is going to work, moving coil galvanometer. So coming to the construction. Okay, coming to the constructions here, it consists of a coil C wound on a non-metallic frame. The coil is suspended between two poles of a permanent magnet which are cylindrical in shape. The coil of the coil is suspended with a movable torsion head H by a strip or wire made up of phosphor bronze, which acts as a path for the current to flow through the coil. End of the wire is connected to the terminal T2 of the galvanometer. The other end of the coil is connected to a light spring S, which is finally connected to the terminal 1. The spring exerts a very small restoring torque on the coil. A soft iron core is placed with the frame of the coil. A plain circular mirror M is attached on the wire or strip to note the deflection of the coil using the lamp and scale arrangement. Okay, so you can see here in the first figure, you can see it is a construction. Okay, there is nothing but how the moving coil galvanometer is constructed. Okay, so you can see there are two magnets N and S. Okay, which type of a magnet is that? It is a cylindrical in shape. Okay, so you can see the two magnets are in cylindrical in shape. So you can see the wire, okay, which is connected to the H. Okay, that is H is called as the torsion head. So and it has been connected to a one end, it has been connected to the H and another end is connected to the S. Okay, S is a terminal where we have connected a soft iron. Okay, sorry, it is connected to a light spring. Okay, so one end of the thread has been connected to the torsion head, that is H, and the another is connected to the light spring. Okay, so that thread itself acts as a path for the current. Okay, next you can see there M is a mirror which is used to find the deflection, by what amount the loop has been rotated. Okay, so by making use of that mirror, you can just calculate it, the amount of by what degree the loop has been moved. Okay, so this is the construction of this moving coil galvanometer. Okay, so next here let us see how it's going to work. Okay, so see here they have given that theory, just going the theory part. Let B is equal to intensity of magnetic field, I is equal to current through the coil, L is equal to length of coil, B is the breadth of coil, L into B is nothing but area of the coil, N is the number of turns of the coil. Okay, these are the known things, right? So you have placed a coil, okay, which is in between the magnet. Okay, so obviously there will be a magnetic field, so the current passes through that thread. Okay, and B is the magnetic field, I is the current flowing through the thread, and L is the length and B is the breadth of the coil. So L into B gives the area of the coil. So next they have said is N is the number of turns. Okay, these are all which we have come across. Okay, so next, when current flows through the coil, it experiences a torque which is given by tau is equal to NIAB sin theta. Okay, as you know that when does the current carrying conductor or a rectangular loop, okay, experiences the torque maximum when theta is equal to 90 degree. Okay, so when theta is equal to 90 degree, you can see that the torque experienced by the loop is more, okay, maximum. So the value of that is given as tau is equal to NIAB sin theta. Okay, so since theta is equal to 90 degree, it is 1. So the value of that is given, I mean the tau is nothing but written as tau is equal to NIAB. Okay, just I'll mark, see there, tau is equal to NIAB. So this is known as the deflecting torque. Okay, this is known as the deflecting torque. Okay, where the coil has been deflected due to the presence of magnetic field. Okay, so next here they have said that the torque tau deflects the coil through an angle phi. A restoring torque is set up in the coil due to the elasticity of the spring such that, okay, so let us say that the loop, okay, the loop has been deflected by an angle of phi. Okay, that means that the loop has been experienced a torque by an angle of phi. Okay, so as you know that, you can see here one end of the loop has been connected to torsion head, that is H, and the another end of the loop has been connected to the S here, S dash. Okay, that is nothing but it is a spring. Okay, so what happens once the torque is rotated? Okay, once the loop experiences the torque, it rotates, right? So that is called as the deflecting torque. So since the another end of the coil has been connected to the spring, what happens, that spring, what does it do is it produces a restoring torque, okay, which is opposite to that of the direction of deflecting torque. Okay, so that restoring torque which is set up in the coil due to the elasticity of the spin is given as tau dash is proportional to phi. Okay, so that the restoring torque which is produced due to the spring bring back the coil to its normal position. Okay, so that is called as restoring torque. Tau dash is proportional to phi, or tau dash is equal to k phi, where k is a constant called that one as torsion constant of the spring we call. Okay, or you are going to define that k as torque required to produce unit angular twist. Okay, torque required to produce unit angular twist is called as the k, torsion constant. Okay, so next, in equilibrium position, what happens, the deflecting torque will be nothing but equal to restoring torque, right? So in the equilibrium position, what happens, deflecting torque will be equal to equilibrium position. So let us substitute the values. So the deflecting torque is nothing but equal to NIAB, as you know that the restoring torque is nothing but k phi. So hence if you take out that I on the left hand side, so I can be written as I is equal to k phi divided by NAB. Okay, so that I can be written as I is equal to G into phi. Okay, where the G is nothing but a constant, we call that one as galvanometer constant, that is nothing but equal to K divided by NAB. Okay, So you can see there the k is a constant where g is equal to k divided by NAB, right? So in that k is a constant, n is nothing but what, number of turns, that is constant, a is nothing but what, area, that is also constant, b is a magnetic field, so even that is a constant. So all this k, n, a, b is a constant which is replaced by another constant, that is g, which is called as galvanometer constant. Okay, so hence you can say that by this equation, since I is equal to g into phi, right? So g is a constant, so hence that can be written as I is proportional to phi. Okay, so whatever the amount is current, whatever the amount of current is flowing in the loop, in the coil, okay, it is directly proportional to the angle. Okay, so more is the current flowing through the uh, loop or the coil, so more will be the deflection produced. Okay, that is what they have said here. Thus deflection of the coil is directly proportional to the current flowing through it. Hence we can use a linear scale in the galvanometer to detect the current in the circuit. Okay, so hence this is the construction and theory part of a moving coil galvanometer. Okay, so just go through once, go through the first theory part, then go to the figure. Okay, or else you can just go through the figure first, then you can just go through the construction, then how we are going to find that I is proportional to phi. Okay, theory part, just go through for a few minutes. In case if you have any doubts, please let me know. Okay students, here, so let me make it more simple. Okay, so see here, the working of this moving coil galvanometer, as you know that it is based upon the current carrying loop. When it is placed in the uniform magnetic field, it experiences the torque, right? So in the first figure you can see there you have a two magnets. Okay, so it is a concave shaped magnets. So in between that magnets we have placed a coil. Okay, so one end of the coil has been connected to the torsion head, that is H, and the another end of the coil has been connected to the spring, okay, S dash. So as you know that now the coil is in the presence of magnetic field. Okay, so as you know that whenever a current carrying coil is placed in the uniform magnetic field, what happens? It experiences a torque. Okay, let us say that now the coil has been experienced a torque. Okay, that means that it has been deflected by an angle of phi. Okay, so that torque is called as deflecting torque, we call. Okay, so since the coil has been deflected by an angle of phi, so we call that torque as deflecting torque. So as you know, now you know that the another end of the coil has been connected to a spring. Okay, so what does that spring do? So due to that, due to its elasticity, it tries to bring that torque, I mean sorry, it tries to bring that coil to its initial position. Okay, so that it exerts a restoring torque in a direction opposite to that of the deflecting torque. Okay, so it always, this restoring torque, that is the spring, the restoring torque which is produced by the spring, okay, always tries to bring back the coil to its initial position. Okay, so that restoring torque is denoted by tau dash, which is proportional to phi. Okay, so hence you can write that one as tau dash is equal to k phi, where k is called as the torsion constant. Okay, so next, when the coil is in equilibrium, okay, so the deflecting torque is nothing but equal to the restoring torque. So the deflecting torque is nothing but equal to NIAB, right? NIAB, that is nothing but equal to k phi is the restoring torque. So taking I, the value of that comes out to be as k phi divided by NAB. So I is equal to G into phi. So that k phi divided by NAB, sorry, that k divided by NAB has been replaced by a constant G. So that G is called as the galvanometer constant. So hence that k, n, a, b all are constant, which is replaced by another constant, that is G. So hence you can say that I is directly proportional to phi. More is the current flowing through the coil, more is the torque experienced by the coil. Okay, so this is regarding the working of this moving coil galvanometer. Okay, in case if you have any doubts, you can ask. Any doubts, students? Yes, I didn't get a reply from anyone. Any doubts, you can ask. Yes, I didn't get a reply from anyone. Is it clear? Have you understood this working of this moving coil galvanometer? Okay, so do one thing. Make a practice of this, practice this derivation, magnetic orbital dipole moment of a revolving electron. Since I have said it is an important question, make a practice of that question. Okay, so with this thing we will conclude today's class. In the next class, I think we will finish off this chapter. Okay, so since we have left out with a few topics, okay, so we will finish off that. After that we will start doing with the numericals. Okay, we will start with the numericals. Okay students, we will conclude the today's class. Thank you.